Let's have a look at this exam style question, which is looking at the advantages of sexual reproduction in plants. Now, this is part of a question which has several parts to it, and we're just looking at D. And the question says, explain the advantages of sexual reproduction in Arabica coffee plants compared with asexual reproduction in hydras. Now, let's start by identifying the command word, and I can see the command word here is the word explain. And that means that we need to say how sexual reproduction in the Arabica coffee plant gives the plant an advantage over asexual reproduction. Now, this is an application question, so you don't need any prior knowledge or understanding of coffee plants or hydras. It's more about testing your understanding of what the advantages are of sexual reproduction compared to asexual reproduction in plants. Now, let's have a little look at some of the important scientific words or phrases in the question, and I can see the term sexual reproduction. What's that? Well, remember, flowering plants can reproduce sexually through a process called pollination, and sexual reproduction in plants requires the male gamete, which is the pollen, from one flower coming into contact with the female gamete, which is the ovule, of another flower. Now, that compares to asexual reproduction, which we've got mentioned here, which happens in hydras. An asexual reproduction occurs when cells from one parent divide by mitosis to produce a whole new organism. But since there's no mixing of genetic information, the offspring are all genetically identical to the parent plant. Now, sexual reproduction has some advantages over asexual reproduction. Because it involves the mixing of genetic material from each parent plant, the offspring are all different. So sexual reproduction leads to variation in the offspring. And this variation is really good for the survival of a species because it's the differences in the characteristics of each organism which mean that they're more likely to be able to survive a variety of different environmental conditions. So let's have a go at putting an answer together. I think the first thing we need to say is that sexual reproduction leads to variation in offspring. So sexual reproduction leads to variation in offspring. And because all the offspring are different, all the offspring are different, they are more likely to survive a variety of environmental conditions. So we've got 3 marks. So I think the first mark here is going to be for saying sexual reproduction leads to variation in the offspring, which is that point there. The second mark would be for saying because all the offspring are different, they are more likely to survive a variety of environmental conditions. There's the third mark.